Welcome back, everyone. So today we are going to start on a casino project. So we're going to open up a new project. We're just going to name it casino. My goal with this is to create a few different games within this, so we can show some how the different classes can work together with an overarching class that's going to call everything. So this is how we're going to do it. First one we're going to do is roulette. Future we'll probably do stuff like poker. Maybe craps, just all the different kind of games that are out there. They're really easy and well documented on how to and what the rules are for those games, and they're pretty universal. Gambling's pretty universal. I'm in no way trying to show, say that gambling is good or anything. This is just a good, easy way that is pretty universal that we can test some of this stuff out. So the first thing we're going to do is have a bankroll. This is going to be the money that is going to be used for the game, for the different spins and bets and that kind of stuff. And so we're going to make this a global variable for this class. Although by using the private reserved word, then it's going to make it only accessible and it can only be changed within this class. Which means that we're going to have to use methods within this class to adjust those numbers, either up or down. We're also going to have a spin count, just so that we can keep track of how many spins that instance has had. So now we're going to create a constructor. By just creating a class, it implicitly has an empty constructor. However, we are going to actually create a constructor because we want to set some variables whenever we call it. So the first one we're going to have in the parameters is bankroll. So we're going to give it a number, and then that is going to fill in the global variable of bankroll whenever that constructor is called. And then we just know that anytime we have a new instance of this, that the spin count is going to be 0. So we don't have to worry about passing in that parameter because we just know it's going to be 0. So for our first method, other than our constructor, we're gonna make it private. So only this class is going to be able to see this method. So we're going to call it spin because we know that we're going to have a spin to play this game. So I like to kind of add some notes in here and there as I'm writing these different things, just so I can kind of remember, and if I'm coming back to it, or if another programmer is going to come down in the long run, and then in this case for you guys, so that you can see what's going on. So one of the first notes is the 0 to 36 is going to be the actual value. So whatever gets returned, 0 through 36 will be actually 0 through 36 on the game board. 37, however, is going to act as our double 0. So we're going to do a 0 and double 0 roulette game, because in America that's what it is. The European one only has a 0. There's no double 0. Another thing we want to do is, because it's a spin, we're going to add a spin count to it. So there's a few different ways we can do this. We can either set the global variable, this spin count equals this spin count plus 1, which is pretty easy. It's just saying that we're going to reset it to whatever it is plus 1. We could do the plus equals 1, which is really an easy way. All these are the same thing. My preference is the plus plus. The one where we do plus equals, I prefer only when you're doing it for like plus 2 or plus 3, or something other than just 1. Plus plus is just nice and easy to do that. Now for the actual meat of this method, we're going to call the math library, so math.random. What that's going to do is it's going to return us a double, so a decimal, that is less than 1. So we want to multiply it by 10 right now, and actually in a little bit we're going to change that to 100. My bad. Didn't notice that until post-processing. So anyway, that's going to move it over, and then we're going to get rid of, by doing the floor, we're going to get rid of everything past the decimal. Then the last thing we're going to do is modulo it by 38, meaning that 37 will actually be the highest number we can get because this is division. So if we have 38 divided by 38, the remainder is 0, it's going to get returned as 0. That's what modulo does, is it returns the remainder. So if we get 37 divided by 38, we're going to get a remainder of 37. So that's why we get the range from 0 to 37, which is why I did the note above. So that's how we're going to get our 0, our double 0, and then our 1 through 36 numbers. So now we're going to call an instance of this in our main method. So back in the beginning, I kind of showed as we were making this class that we clicked the check mark to make it create that main method. Either you can type it in or you click that when you're creating that in Eclipse and it will automatically write it for you. This just means that whenever we run this class, it's going to look for that main method. If it has it, it's going to run everything in there for this. So this just makes it so we can test this class without having another class calling it, creating an instance of it. I highly recommend this for whatever you are creating, whether it's academics, whatever. Test often. Please test often. I know here we kind of blazed through some of these things, but please, as you write stuff, write a few lines of code, test it. Write a few lines of code, test it. Try not to change too much between testing, otherwise you're going to break something and you're going to have to go back and figure out where those changes were. So we created an instance of Roulette, called it RG1, and gave it the parameter of 10. And then we just printed out what spin is returning. And if we run it a few times, we're seeing that we're getting numbers. And that's where I had to go change it to 100. Otherwise, we're only going to get single-digit numbers. So now we are going to create a toString class, because it's great to have the system.out, but remember, anything in the main method that we have here is how we're going to have to call this whenever we have another class using this class. So we really don't want to have any of these system.out print lines in the main method in general. That's a general rule of thumb. We really want to have that contained in the toString so that we can really just call that. So we call it public, has to be public by definition, because we're overriding the already explicit toString method. It's going to return a string, which it has to do, and then we call it toString. So we're going to return a string of all of these different things. So it's going to be a roulette game. We're going to give it the \n, which is going to create a new line. So all of this is actually going to be one big long line of a string, but we're going to split it up by these \new lines. And I like to just cut it up with the plus and have it on the actual different line where we have those new lines, so we actually see what is going to be displayed when we call it. So now if we go down and have system.out print line, and then call our instance, which is rg1.toString, we are going to see what we just created. So now so the spin created a 3, and it's roulette game, your bankroll is $10, and you have now had one spin, which makes sense because that occurred after we called spin. If we would have had it before spin, then the spin count would have not run before this was called. So now we want to create a method that is going to handle a turn. Spin is great, but you as the person playing roulette isn't going to come to the table and actually do the spin. You'll create a bet and put chips on the table and stuff, but you're not actually doing the spin, and you have nothing. You have no control of that. That is completely the randomness of the game. So in turn, we're going to have that spin number get saved into the spin number variable, so we can do some stuff with it. One, we can print it, and then we can also do some other configuring later with where that with what we're doing, checking to see if it's a winning number, all that kind of stuff. But for right now, we are just going to print it out and show the user what number won and how to and then what their stats are. So now we can see it says roulette game, showed it, and told us what the winning number is. And then we just put it afterwards because it kind of made sense actually to have the roulette game be the header portion of it and then tell them what they won. So if we have if we call it again, then it's going to show it 2 times. It's going to show that the winning number was 2, then it was 35, and we can see it from there. The only other thing we can kind of do is play with how this is going to look right now. So we can either put the new line in our turn. So at the end of the message that says number 1, we can have a new line. Or we can put this down in the toString method at the beginning of it, which I think makes actually a little more sense, because if it's in the bigger class of casino and then we call toString, then it'll be on the new line now anyway. Thank you guys for listening, and on the next episode we will talk about how to take in the bet and the selected number.